Hello everyone, and welcome to another Why No One or Why Everyone Uses video, and this one's on Iron Hands. Now, I'm just kind of going over what it is that makes it so used, and it's pretty much just the fact that Iron Hands has a lot of offensive options, and it pretty much is a very simple mod to use, very simple to build, and there's not much to it. It just kind of has a lot of moves that are super useful for making it actually do a lot of damage. Like, you get stuff like Belly Drum to set up, Body Press if you set up like Iron Defenses, which it does get, Brick Break for breaking screens, Bulldoze, Charge for making its electric type moves stronger, Close Combat, Drain Punch, Earthquake even is an option you get with it. And you also have Electric Terrain if you want to set up the terrain. But you get a lot of other stuff like Fire Punch, Force Palm, Hard Press, Heavy Slam, Ice Punch, Iron Head, stuff like that. It's basically mostly moves that do damage that are 75 base power or higher on average. And that really does show a lot. Like, for electric type moves, you've got like Thunder Punch for accuracy and no downside. Then you've got Wild Charge for recoil but higher damage. And then you've got Supercell Slam, which has that 5% chance to miss, and if you miss after belly drumming, you die. Like I mentioned that in the Why No One Uses Veluza, and that's kind of useful. Like, you've got Reversal in case you want to belly drum and then take a hit, get a reversal off, and do a lot of damage, and then heal it back up. Stomping Tantrum if you like miss something that doesn't kill you. And yeah, that's a lot of options. Play Rough Even's on there. So, like, you get a lot of useful Terras because you have good coverage moves. And that's another reason it's used in Terra raids. And it's just kind of one of those mons that does a lot because of it. Now, you notice I don't mention really any support moves besides like the setup moves that tend to help it kill. And that's really because Iron Hands only has those kinds of moves and not really much else. Like, sure, you can drop its speed with a low speed mon that isn't going to really have much else going for it. Sure, you can set up the terrain, but in most cases it's not really going to benefit you. Then you've got other things that are good about it, like its typing. Electric Fighting is great. Like, Electric Fighting's weaknesses, a lot of people probably haven't looked at it, but I'm gonna get the list of weaknesses up real quick. So, Pokemon type calculator. Okay. So, stuff like this is really important. So, like, if you're fighting electric, your weaknesses are ground, psychic, fairy. And that's big. In fact, this actually is updated to actually say the Terra. So, like, if you're terraing into that, and it even has ability taken into account, interesting. But basically, if you're going for this, another thing about electric fighting is that you resist 5 types, including electric. And that's including electric, I mean. But that's 4 types that are not your type that you're resisting, and you're taking neutral damage from, like, it's 10 types that matter in Terra raids, because you're never going to have a Terra Stellar mon that you're fighting. You're only going to be using Stellar mons in Terra raids. And sure, you can run Terra Stellar, but why? Like, it's not superior, it's not Enamorous. I was trying to think of the name for a second. But Stellar Terra, not really too useful in Terra raids unless you have an ability that makes it useful. But with, like, Iron Hands, sure, if it's a defensive raid, you're going to use it if it's, like, let's say, specially defensive, I mean. But if you're fighting an Avalugg, you'll probably go with something more specially offensive on your side, rather than Iron Hands. But Iron Hands can work because its attack is so high, and then you get into what items work with Iron Hands. And you've got, like, Booster Energy, Life Orb, Shell Bell, and many other things, like Metronome even. Like, anything that allows it to do either extra damage or stay around longer. And that's the key thing. And Iron Hands has really high attack and HP and defense. Like, let me just pull it up real quick to get the exact numbers. I'll post it up on screen, but you'll see pretty quickly that Iron Hands has a lot of stats, like 154 HP, 140 attack, and 108 defense, which 108 defense, not bad. Like, sure, it's high, but it is very defensively bulky in comparison. And that's because it's built more like Hariyama. And it's a paradox of Hariyama. Why wouldn't it be? On top of it, you get the foil to Fluttermane in terms of stat spread, kinda. Like, with Fluttermane, you're all special attack, special defense, and speed. With Iron Hands, you're all HP, attack, and defense, practically. Like, I think the stat spread is damn near identical on how much points are put in on either side for each. And that says a lot. Like, with Iron Hands being this good, you'd think, well, what are the downsides? The low special defense and low speed, basically. But because you're just going to belly drum and then hit it really hard instantly, you're not really going to see that. Like, you even have Sword Stance if you want to safely set up, but you don't have to. And that's the key thing about Iron Hands, is it's very simple. It has 3 setup options to do more damage with, like I said, Belly Drum and Sword Stance, but it also has Iron Defense for Body Press. I believe I've mentioned that, but the fact that it's a setup mon, it's setup based into attacking, and you'll see gameplay of that, but that really doesn't change much about it. Because, sure, Quark Drive, its ability, that's very useful with, like, booster energy, because you can get 30% more attack, and let's say you take a beneficial nature at level 100, you're gonna have 416 physical attack, and then you're gonna get an additional 1.3 times, which puts you at effective 540 before plus 6. Because plus 6 is, if I remember right, times 3. I think that's it. Is it? It might be higher. Like, if it's times 3, you're effectively hitting at 1,622-ish attack. Which is very strong. And that's before you account for the fact that there's base power and stab, and with a bunch of its moves. It's really a lot of that. And so, yeah. On top of it, if you're on Pokemon Violet, it's easy to obtain. It's a Paradox Mon that you get in Area 0. And sure, you don't use, like, its common moves from competitive, like Fake Out and Volt Switch. I was trying to think for a second. But yeah, It really shows a lot. Like, you can also focus energy if you really want to, but I don't see people using focus energy or sand attack that often. So it really does show how this mon is, and I hope you all enjoyed this video, as I talked pretty much about everything I think I could about Iron Hands. And I'll see you all in the next Why No One Uses, because Cyclizar is up next. Bye-bye.